Well, welcome to another session of Just Me. Today we're joined by the most amazing lady, Viv Buckley, and I'll get her to say more about, obviously, who she is. So over to you, Viv. So who are you and what do you do?
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, Sid. So, hi, my name's Viv Buckley, and I am currently the Deputy Principal at Bridgend College. I often describe myself as wearing quite a few different hats, but I suppose that's the biggest hat at the moment. So, really exciting to be working at the college. But I also previously worked as a drama teacher. So, I'm also the artistic director of a great company called West Glamorgan Youth Theatre Company. And I sit on some boards for different things as well. So I've got quite a checkered and quite a interesting career, I would say. But in terms of who I am, I'm Viv and I live in Barry with my lovely dog, Malcolm.
That's so cool. So what was your journey to where you are today? Because I know there's an interesting kind of story behind it of how you arrived to where you are.
Yeah, so as I was brought up in Barry, and as I say, I'm living back here again now, but I've actually spent most of my adult life living in Swansea, and I ended up in Swansea because that's where my PGCE placement was. And I was sent as a PGCE student, knowing that I wanted to work probably with older young people. So I trained in post-16 PGCE, and I knew I wanted to be a drama teacher. And I think my journey to why a drama teacher, lots of people would maybe empathise with. If I'm honest, the reason I loved drama in school was because it meant you didn't have to go outside in the lunch hour. And if you were doing drama, it meant that you could spend some time in the drama studio and you got an early lunch ticket. And it meant you didn't have to necessarily run the gauntlet of what I suppose sometimes a lunchtime in a huge comprehensive school can be. So that was where my journey to drama certainly came from. But then I knew that I wanted to teach. That had always been something that I knew I wanted to do. And because drama was the subject I enjoyed most in school, I wanted to carry on working in that. And then I did a degree. And I did better in my degree than I thought I was going to do. So originally I thought I was going to do some primary school teaching, but then I took a bit of time to think about where I wanted to be. And then I settled on the fact that actually it was going to be post-16 was probably the right sector for me. And my first teaching placement took me to what was then Bridgend College. And I went there to do my 5-month placement and was still working there 11 years later. And so very much living in Swansea, and that became, certainly a huge part of my adult life was spent in Swansea doing a job that I still think about on a daily basis. I had the best time with the best people. I met amazing students. I worked with amazing staff. I directed plays. It was just exciting. It was an exciting group of people at a really, really exciting time in an exciting college. But then I suppose you get to the stage in your career where you start thinking, what's next? And at one point during my time working in Bridgend, I also took a bit of a pause because I'd been maybe teaching for 7 or 8 years and had got to the stage where some of the brilliant young people I'd been working with had gone away to maybe train in a drama school. And then they were kind of sending me messages saying, well, I've done my training. What next? How do I use that now? I'm unemployed again now and I'm back working in McDonald's. What happened? I've just been to this amazing place. Wow. I thought I'd now be in the National Theatre, or I thought I'd be in movies. And that's not the reality of how life works, is it? So I actually, with a friend of mine, set up a theatre company called Gradco, the Graduate Theatre Company. And I actually took a sabbatical at one point. And we set up the company to try and provide the answer to that question. Wow. So that graduates could have somewhere to have their first professional job. And we did some great stuff there. We did some pieces that kind of like appeared in London, and I lived the dream for a bit. But if I'm honest, the self-employed life wasn't for me. There wasn't enough structure in it. And I very happily went back to teaching. But I think once I'd taken that break and kind of come off the wheel, if you like, I started evaluating maybe where else I could be and what else I needed to do. So I went from Bridgend to setting up a performing arts academy in Theatr Brycheiniog with colleague Powys. And then from there, I finally made the brave step to move into management, which brought me to Bridgend College, where I started as a curriculum manager, looking after creative arts, and then moved from there to being a dean of faculty. And now I'm the deputy principal. So yeah, it's been quite a helter-skelter of a journey, and not necessarily the straightest path to where I am, but yeah, it's been an exciting one.
And how long have you been at Bridgend?
7 years now.
Wow. You've done pretty well there, though, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I have, and you know, it's an amazing place, and we say this. It's an obvious thing to say, really, but a college is a place of learning, but not just a place of learning for the students that are within it. It very much, and more than any other place I've worked, Bridgend is absolutely about building people. And when I just think about the opportunities I've had as a member of staff there to develop, you know, it's been quite amazing.
I mean, I love Bridgend College. I think it's amazing, and it's so interesting when you actually go there physically. You know, obviously this is, you know, before COVID. The thing that I love is that whenever I go, people smile at you, the staff smile, and there's just a very special vibe there. And it's something that I haven't really found and discovered any other places. So why is that?
I think a lot of that is to do with the values that the college truly lives. And I agree with you, Sid. I don't think I've ever worked anywhere where the values are as important. And the one thing we truly do pride ourselves on is being inclusive and being people-centered. And our tagline at the college is "Be all that you can be." And that's a motto that came from Western House. So Western House is a residential centre that sits on our college campus, and it is a centre where students with some learning disabilities actually are residential, but they live in Western House and they have some of their tuition there, but then they also come over across to college, and their main programme of study is integrating in with learners and is part of just the whole ecology of how the college works. So I think you're right, there is something tangible when you walk into Bridgend College where you can see so many different types of people from so many different backgrounds. The age profile is interesting in Bridgend as well, because a lot of our students are older. FE is obviously called kind of like the second chance sector, where some people may come because whatever their first choice of learning was maybe hasn't worked for them, or there's somebody who's been to work and then thought, actually, I want to do something else now, or it's somebody who maybe had a child at a young age and is now going, actually, I'm ready to think about me again. And Bridgend is a vocational training centre, very much attract lots of people, a really big cross section. So I think it is truly inclusive in terms of the people who are there, but I think it's also truly inclusive in terms of the culture and the ethos as well, where it very much is a place where everybody is part of that. And we talk a lot about the college community, and people will often describe my Bridgend College family. And I'm with you. When I first got to Bridgend, I was almost thinking, this is a bit strange. It's a bit odd, because I kept kind of, I suppose, looking for there's got to be something here. There's got to be a flow, but it's not. It is a genuine vibe and a genuine feel, and it's going from strength to strength in terms of really still trying to push that. I mean, we really pleasing, especially with COVID. We've just again been awarded the gold for the Mind Wellbeing Index. So that's where our staff would have actually answered a survey about how they're feeling. We've hit the gold standard before, but to have done it in the year, and goodness me, it's been a difficult year in education, but to still be there where people are saying, yes, okay, it's been hard, but we feel supported. Yes, okay, this has been tricky, but we always knew we could pick up the phone and someone would say, okay, this is how we're going to find our way through this. And that's really pleasing. And similar results from our students as well. You know, 98% of our students still saying they'd recommend Bridgend College to a friend. 98% still saying that, you know, they've enjoyed their time there. So, and I know stats don't always tell the story of the people behind it. They are useful, especially in the year we've just had. So yeah, you're right. It is a special place, and it's hard to define why. That it's about the people. Fundamentally, it's about the people who were there. And I think we've got a lot of experienced people who've spent a lot of time at the college, but also I think we're really good at integrating new people in as well and welcoming them.
So what have you learned along the way? So what were your kind of key lessons up to today?
I've learned certainly more in the last couple of years that it's true, isn't it? If you've got a good team of people around you and with you, you really can achieve anything. And I think there's something about having a purpose and having a common goal. And I think in the two areas I've talked about, in Bridgend and in the youth theatre that I look after, I think that's the thing that is very similar in both places. It's a group of people who all essentially are pushing in the same direction. And that doesn't mean we don't fall out. And that doesn't mean that we don't have disagreements or robust conversations. That doesn't mean there's no challenge. But fundamentally, we're all aiming for the same thing. And fundamentally, we're all aiming to make sure that the learners who come across our paths are given the very, very best chance to achieve their aims and their objectives. And I think that common purpose means that you can achieve lots. I think it's very difficult to achieve good things when people are pulling in different directions. So I think teamwork is the one for me. You know, being with people who push you and challenge you, but also being with people who take on board your challenge and take on board what you know, some of the things you're striving for as well.
I love that. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I know that you're involved in West Glamorgan Theatre Company, and I mean, one of the alumni is Michael Sheen, isn't it? And one of the things that he said that he learned so much about, you know, being part of that kind of theatre was the discipline of work and the discipline of practice and kind of routine. And it's quite interesting because I was reading the profile the other day about the youth theatre, and there is so much about that, isn't it? It's not just about the performance, it's about the learning that's also that backs that up. And that's also true, isn't it, of Bridgend? It's yes, you've got amazing subjects that you kind of teach and you deliver, but it's much more about the kind of the rounded well-being of the individual.
Yeah, I completely agree there. It is, we call it in Bridgend kind of like the wraparound service, but I think you're right. Again, if you look at what happens in West Glamorgan Youth Theatre Company, it's a very similar thing. It's about creating space for people to learn, but it's also about creating space for people to make mistakes. It's about creating a safe environment where if something goes wrong, it's okay. You know, we have a phrase in West Glam, which is, you know, it's all right to drop the ball, as long as you pick the ball back up or you look around you for other people to help you pick that ball up and you keep moving forward. But it's fine to drop it, as long as you know why you dropped it, and as long as you know what the consequences of that were. That's okay, because you pick it up and you move on, and we draw a line. We don't look back. We don't hark to the past. We keep moving forward. And that very much, I think, is true in a sense in Bridgend College as well. It's about people coming to the college. It's a fresh start. It's a new start. It's about giving people space to reflect on their journey leading up to where they find themselves. But then the whole focus is on, let's move forward. Where are we going next? And some people, in order to move forward, just need the right person to press the right buttons and they'll fly. Other people need lots of interventions. Other people need lots of people to kind of help them get over hurdles or get through barriers. And I think the other thing that we think about a lot is those hurdles and barriers that people may have in front of them. Sometimes they're real. You know, sometimes money, for example, is a real problem for someone. So how can we help with that? Sometimes accessibility is a real problem for someone. So how can we help with that? You know, goodness me, in the COVID environment, just the digital stuff, if, you know, it was all great, wasn't it? Me saying we flipped to online learning. But if you were a young person who lived in a household with one device, with suddenly 4 brothers and sisters at home all doing online learning and mum or dad working from home saying, but I need that computer for the 7 hours a day so I can do my job and pay the mortgage. That was a real barrier. And we needed to act very quickly to help remove that real barrier for people. But I also think there often are perceived barriers. And sometimes the support people need is to see that that's not actually a barrier. That's either you doubting yourself, or that's your perception of a situation. But actually we can smash through some of those really, really quickly. And then let's focus on the things that are real barriers. And again, a real barrier to somebody might be that they find doing maths very difficult. That's okay. Let's accept that. Let's accept that challenge. How are we going to put it right?
It's so brilliant. It's so funny. I mean, every conversation I've ever had with you, it's just that it's like we can do this. It's like no obstacle is too big, you know, and can get in the way. So what sort of obstacles? Because there must be times where you kind of go, oh, there's a challenge here. You know, where does Viv go to when she needs to really kind of dig deep and, you know, refire up that mojo? How do you kind of overcome those things?
I think you're right. And what I was reflecting on first when you were talking there is, where does that come from? Because I think you're right. You know, I think I do tend to go, come on, what can we do here? And again, I mean, bless the people who work with me. Sometimes I think they're there thinking, oh, have a day off, you know, come on, not let's just do this. But come on, what's next? What's next? What's next? A student once described me, and I think it was a brilliant description. He looked at me and he said, it's like you've got a load of bees buzzing around in your head and you're just trying to grab hold of one. And I thought, oh, that's very true. So for me, sometimes the barrier is moving too quickly or getting too overexcited. And then it is about remembering the people and remembering that actually we all need to move together, as opposed to some of us, you know, running off and having a lovely time and other people going, hang on a minute, where did you go? So I think it's about remembering the people, and I have to ground myself with that. In my personal life, very much, I am very, very lucky. I have a sister And often I use the friend of I don't know where the phrase I don't know where I end and she begins, but she is absolutely, she would be my first phone call. And quite often I do need to do a, right, you know, and she is somebody who can ground me and somebody who's very good at going, just stop it, you know, when it feels like it's spiraling a little bit. But then the other thing I think, which I know I need to do for myself, is I know that I need to take time out. I know that sometimes I need to stop. And whilst I am quite a driven person, you know, I've got quite a high output. And when I'm working, and I really like actually being busy. I hate being bored, but I am also very, very good at switching off. I am also very good at going, okay, it's Sunday, I don't answer emails on a Sunday, or wherever in the week I decide to put that space. And if I'm in an incredibly busy time, I'll go, okay, I can do that. But then I know I'm going to need a couple of days where I read a book, I turn the phone off, I get off social media, I walk the dog. You know, I do need to moderate that, because otherwise, I suppose, and I have, if I'm honest, had points in the past where I didn't do that, and then got close to a point of going, oh, am I going to burn out here? Am I going to take this too far? So it is about moderating that, because my desire is always going to be to do more, do more, do more. But actually, and this is an age thing, I think the older I've got, I've learned that I'm much more effective if I also sometimes do less.
But that's a huge lesson to learn, isn't it? I mean, and that's a tough one to learn too, because you know you are always, I mean, you're always so much full of energy, but there's only so much energy that you can find and spend. And then when you get into the end of that energy, as you say, it's taking time out and then really closing off or shutting down or whatever. But that's difficult to do when you are somebody who has got loads of bees buzzing around and you're trying to catch one of them.
I think, and again, my sister and all of my family, they laugh, because when I say switch off, I mean, my idea of switching off would still be reading a book, or would still be going, I don't know anything about that, let's find out, or would be going, I've never read that or heard about that. So that would be, you know, let's watch a documentary. So I suppose my idea of switching off might be somebody else's idea of ramping up. I don't know. But I think for me, actually doing something, if I'm honest, the bottom line is that's not work related.
I got you.
This is another thing that I have definitely learned in lockdown. I knew I loved theatre. I knew I loved art. But I don't think until lockdown I realised how much that is genuinely part of who I am. Because not being able, because my other thing would be go and walk around an art gallery, go to the theatre and escape for 2 hours, go to the cinema and see a great film and be in it. Because you can't answer an email or you can't do anything else while you're in those activities. And I always thought it was just something I kind of did, but having had the time we had early doors in lockdown where all of that stopped, it was a genuine craving for seeing something beautiful like a painting on a wall, or seeing something beautiful like a bit of architecture, or, you know, but I didn't realize how important that was to me until it wasn't there, I think.
Wow. It's like that's your sort of fuel, isn't it? That's your real energy. But where did it come from, and when did you recognize that you needed that?
Being brought up in the family I was brought up in, I'm very lucky in one sense. My mum and dad never pushed me to do anything, but they also never said I couldn't do anything. So I think what I mean by that was I didn't live in a household that was, you have to get your GCSEs. I'm the only one of my siblings that went to university. It wasn't a household that was, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to go there. But by the same token, when I said, I know nobody else has done this, but I think I want to go to university, that would have just been, okay, we'll make that happen. I was always allowed to make independent decisions, and genuinely with my mum and dad coming from a place of, as long as you're happy, love. Yeah, but really meaning that, you know, but not really being the people who are going, well, shouldn't you be thinking about this or this? So when I said crazy things like, I finally got a job that's full-time and paying me a wage, but I'm thinking of taking a sabbatical, their genuine response to that would have been, if that's what you want to do, great. There wouldn't have been a challenge there in a good way. But I also think, coming from a household where definitely music was important, and coming from a household where being inquisitive was important, you know, my mum used to sign my sister and I up for, you know, you'd have the summer holidays and we just want to sit and watch the telly. That wasn't an option. You know, you had to get dressed and be out. And whether that just meant being out or whatever, that was fine. But I can remember one summer holiday, right, get up. I've signed you both up for, this is crackers, in the library, a calligraphy course.
Whoa.
So we end up sat in this library. I mean, like both livid with our lives, but she'd signed us up for a calligraphy course because it was free and it was in the library. And why wouldn't you do that? And although I can remember at the time thinking, you know, like this is the worst day in my life, I learned something. I met people I would never have met before. And I think what I realized was that curiosity of actually going, yeah, go on, I'll come. Yeah, go on, I'll do that. It was the people you'd meet. It was the, you know, I love watching people. I love meeting bizarre people. And I think that that definitely comes from my mum. If you get an invite, you go. And if you, you know, or if you see something in the paper and it says we're showing this random thing in the local theatre, you go. And even if it's rubbish, you laugh about it, but you still will have had time with people, fun getting there, a laugh in the interval. You know, the amount of amateur dramatics pieces she used to take us to see, and some of it was utter rubbish. But I just remember we used to, the journey there, the journey home, you know, it was all, and it was an experience. It never really mattered whether it was a brilliant experience in terms of what you were watching, but you went and you tried it. And I think that maybe gave me, I think, yeah, maybe, I don't know, I've never really thought about that before, Sid, but I think it's probably that. You try, you go.
Lovely.
And if you don't, and this was the other thing, she's a brilliant one on my mum, but if you didn't like it, that was okay, but you had to have tried it first.
Wow.
Even down to, gosh, I can remember when I was about 14, 15, and I'm not a religious person at all, but I was christened. And I can remember challenging my mum and saying, if we're not religious, why did you have me christened? And I was quite belligerent about this. You know, that's ridiculous. I'm not religious, but you made me be christened. And I don't know what point I was trying to make, but I probably had one at the time. And I can remember us saying, because now you have the choice.
Wow.
And my inquisitive nature then,
Wow.
so I did when I was about 15, a couple of Sundays, and you know, you go, I'm going to go, and there's a gospel church round the corner. And as I say, I mean, I'm absolutely an out-and-out atheist, and I was at the time, really, but I went to a gospel church once. And then she took us to midnight mass once.
Wow.
And and not for, because of actually, if it had been, well, that might be your thing. And if it was your thing, then fly with that. But it's okay to say, actually, I've really tried it now, and I'm clear it's not my thing. That was celebrated as well.
That's so brilliant. So what did your mum, or what does your mum do?
Mum lived in London as a younger woman, and came home one Christmas Eve and bumped into my dad in a pub, and left London and came home and moved in with my dad and his 3 children 3 months later.
Wow.
So she went from being a single woman in her 30s
Wow.
to then being a married woman, with kids in like a matter of months. And I often say to her, if I said to you now, oh, it's different, but it must have been, yeah, quite a change of journey there. But all the time I was growing up, mum was a dinner lady in the primary school I went to, and my auntie and uncle were always the stewardess in bars, or they ran the golf club in Barry, and mum for years worked behind the bar.
That's brilliant. God, it's amazing, isn't it? Oh, it's lovely. And it's so fun. What I love about you is about that, it's sort of in curiosity and inquisitive nature, obviously comes, as you say, kind of from your mum and stuff. So what advice would you, if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self?
Much younger self, so kind of like in school.
Yeah.
I was very serious.
Were you?
I took things very seriously. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I would have maybe, like, I used to get quite upset if things in my head failed, or if I thought I hadn't done enough. I was quite hard on myself.
Wow.
I think so. I think maybe I would have chilled out a bit and, you know, not been quite as hard on myself. But then also, I think, yeah, it's just that, is to keep going, isn't it? Is to keep that inquisitive stuff. And then I do sometimes think about whether in maybe life choices, I don't know, if I'd have kept going with that sabbatical for another year, would I now be directing plays in the West End? I don't know. But I'm not sad about any of my choices. I think sometimes I look back and think about, oh, I wonder if I'd made that choice at that point, where it would have gone. But I certainly don't look back on that and think, and I'm really sad about that. It's more of a, I wonder, as opposed to thinking, drat, I missed out there.
I love that. I was just writing that down. I wonder. It's such a brilliant saying, isn't it? And it's so funny because it goes back to the Western House thing, doesn't it? Be all you can be. And it's like, and you say about kind of dropping the ball and don't kind of, you know, regret all that kind of stuff. And you've still got that energy that keeps going. That's what I love. And what advice would you give to others? And I know you've mentioned this because you work with so many kind of young people and so many other people. What advice would you give if you had a kind of top 2 or 3?
Say, And what I mean by that is, if you are struggling, if you're confused, if you're thinking, how do I get through this, or where do I want to go next, put your hand up and say. I was talking on a webinar last week, and it was kind of a similar question where we were talking about like people who want to maybe go into tech jobs but are thinking, I don't think I've got the right background for that. There's not a college or a university in the world who doesn't want everyone who walks through their door to be brilliant. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Pick up the, nobody is running a college thinking, I hope the next group of students are terrible, and haven't got the right qualifications. Yeah. There are people there who want to help you, and more than that, there are people whose job it is to help you. And so often when you deal with young people who've maybe got themselves into a sticky situation, or have maybe got themselves to a place where they're going, I'm just going to drop out now because I don't think I can get past those barriers I was talking about, it's so often about communication. It's about going, if you'd have just a couple of months back gone, I'm not sure I'm coping here, those wraparound services could have done what they do so brilliantly. Because I don't think I can think of many examples in any college, in any university, where when someone says, oh, I need help over here, it isn't there. And it isn't possible to get that help. The problems come when people don't say. And I know that can be the hardest step, isn't it? The first time you go, I didn't actually understand that, or I'm struggling a bit here. So I think that would be my first thing, is to ask for the help. There are people there who would be willing to give it to you. But I suppose my other thing is also about reflecting then. So you need to understand that you do need the help, or that you have got an area that needs improving. And again, that's not a bad thing. But I have always struggled with spelling. I have always struggled with writing. And in primary school, I can remember being sat on a table on my own in a certain class, and for 3 days, I was just instructed to write on a piece of paper, B is for bee, buzzy bee, and D is for dog, because somehow the person who was teaching me obviously thought that would stop me getting my B's and D's around the wrong way. I went to comprehensive school, and I suppose I was quite bright and kept my head down and got through it, but I often used to think, why does that take me 5 times as long as everybody else to do that piece of homework? And then finally, I find myself training to be a teacher, and there's a session where someone says, this is how to spot a student with dyslexia, and I'm going, wow. Oh, hang on. Wow. Some of this is starting to make sense in terms of all the way of thinking, the box of bees that we've talked about. And that starts to suddenly fall into place. So I went along to the centre and I said, this is going to sound strange, not as an up-and-coming teacher, but as a me, can I do that test? And absolutely. So at the age of 21, 22, somebody finally says, oh yeah, that's what that is. And it's not severe, but absolutely in terms of the way my brain works and the way I write. But once I knew that, it's not a problem anymore. Because then all those things for years I've been going, well, why does that happen? Why do I still need to spell check everything? Why do I still need to? And then once you go, oh, there we are, that's all right now then. Because there were people who could then go, just do it like this.
Wow.
Or simply allow yourself the permission to go. I mean, I'm sat here with a notebook in front of me. There is no way anyone else in the world would pick that up and make any sense of it. But it doesn't matter, because it's mine. And as long as I understand it, nobody else needs to. But once, it's almost giving yourself permission as well to go, oh yeah, see, I don't write things in a straight line. I start at the bottom of the page and go that way. Doesn't matter. That's the way I do it.
But it's so funny, isn't it? There's so many so many systems expect us to be the same, don't they? That we need to be battery processed, and it's just not like that.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, and again, put yourself in that environment. Try and surround yourself by like-minded people who are going to go, sorry, that's okay. Do it any way you want to. Don't mind, as long as we get the output. So yeah, putting your hand up is the biggest one, I think. It's about, but also giving yourself time to reflect and say, so why am I, in inverted commas, failing at that? Why is this hard for me? Why are other people seemingly flying through it and I'm not? Because when you actually spend time thinking that, you can then find the help that you need.
That's so cool. So what legacy would you like to leave behind if we got to the end page?
Ooh, that's a good question. See, my brain splits in two then. So I'll put my first hat on, my education hat. And absolutely, for me, that would be about creating a truly inclusive environment, where people were able to decide what they wanted to learn and how they were going to learn it and learn it their way. And I think FE colleges are really well placed and are doing great stuff around that agenda. And I think there's further to go. So I think more work in that area. But then when I put my other hat on, which is going back to my roots really in art, that's about accessibility, isn't it? About thinking, the amazing project that I'm lucky enough to work on, like a youth theatre. There's only one funded youth theatre left in the whole of Wales now.
Wow.
And that's just one aspect, you know, what's happening to orchestras, what's happening to dance companies. Not many people teach dance in schools anymore. So for me, that would be it as well, making sure that the importance of the arts is still absolutely rooted, not just in education, but in society as a whole.
Wow. And if you were to use one word to describe yourself, what one word would that be? You can't have buzzy bees.
Doer. Can I be a doer?
That's fantastic. Yeah, you are. It's so funny. That is such a good word for you. Big smiles. Brilliant. That's amazing. Honestly, Viv, it's so funny. I said this even before we started recording. I always look forward to a conversation with you because I always know that you just see things just so differently, and you're so willing to probe and to, as you say, to be inquisitive and to be curious. And I just love that. And it's interesting. So, you know, when I asked a question about, so where did this come from? And you went back to your mother and you said, well, you know, she basically took us to church, or she took us to midnight mass, or whatever it was, so that we could make our own decision. And again, you know, I just learned so much from you. It's just brilliant. I love that. So would you like to add anything else?
No, just to say that was a really lovely thing to say. Thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time to say that and asking me to come along. But yeah, you've made me think about things there that I'm not sure I've ever really thought about in those terms. But again, it's that time to reflect, isn't it? It's that time to reflect. So it's been really good. Thank you.
Yeah, and as you say, give yourself permission to kind of to do stuff and to say yes. And as you say, you know, go to an amateur theatre production or whatever it is, and it may be rubbish, or you may just meet somebody who, you know, you never know. That's brilliant. Viv, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant, seriously.
Thanks for having me.